like nothing you ever seen. It's like a saber-toothed tiger with homecoming queen. The power and the glory. And when it's all through, the woman gonna see what a crooked eye.
Do you have a disability? Contact the Franklin Disability Commission for information and support. Just call 508-298-4023. That's 508-298-4023. Community radio in the public interest. This is WFPRLP, Franklin on 102.9 FM. And anywhere, anytime at WFPR.FM. So glad you could join us.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Talking the Blues. My name's Jim Derrick, joined again, as always, with my friend, collaborator, co-host, Todd Monjar. Welcome, Todd.
Jim, how are you? I'm glad that you didn't add the word genius there.
I started to, Todd, but I feel like we're sharing genius today.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is a killer show today.
I'm so excited for this show. We're going to cover blues generated out of our backyard. That is the great territory of New England. We're going to cover it from Boston all the way down to Connecticut, all the way up to New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. There's some really good music that's come out of our backyard.
You know, it was a great idea you had for New England. We were this weekend trying to come up with some show ideas. And immediately the 5 or 6 ones that you listed, I said, oh, of course, we could do a show on just one of those groups, one of those bands. And it's interesting how it's a little bit underrated up here for blues.
I couldn't agree more. You know, we're always going to Chicago, we're going to Kansas City, we're going to Texas, and we should be. But you know what? There's so much good blues out of New.
Good now. Can you hear me? Ready? Yeah. What's up, Frank? Good. Hey, good evening, everybody. Open up the June 27th, 2022 public planning board meeting. This is a video and audio recorded as well, and there's a call-in number for 312-626-6799, and the meeting number itself is 8903-08-98736. I guess we'll start off with general business, and first would be 839 Upper Union Street site plan. Go to Brian real quick if Brian has any comment from Department of Planning.
Okay, so guys, you'll have to bear with me. I haven't done this in a while. You had we closed public hearing on this the last meeting, what you need to do is to decide on a couple of requested waivers that they have asked for, and then vote on the decision for the site plan. Thanks before you tonight.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions, comment?
I make a motion to accept the waivers, which are 185-21C5 requirement parking lot for 20 or more cars shall contain or be bordered within 5 feet by at least 1 tree per 10 parking spaces. Trees to be 2-inch caliber or larger, with not less than 40 square feet of unpaved soil area per tree. Soil plots shall be located so as to assure safe internal circulation. And 185-31C4E requirement, no site feature or activity shall create glare or illumination which extends beyond the site's property line and creates a hazard or nuisance to the neighboring property owner or on adjacent roadways. Lighting shall be designed to provide the minimum illumination necessary for the safety and security of the proposed activity. Lighting shall be designed such that the lighting source is shielded and the light is directed downward.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, on the waivers.
And make a motion to approve the decision for the site plan and the standard conditions 1 through 10.
Do I hear- Yep, 1 through 10.
Sorry, at 839 Upper Union Street.
Yep, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And next line item would be Form H for Pellegrino Estates, 25 Plain Street. Brian, from planning, if you could give us a quick rundown. We'll go to Mike from DPW.
All right. The Pellegrini Estates project has submitted a Form H, or a final Form H, final approval of the project. Beta has found a few issues with in their review, and I think we have
Is Matt on Zoom?
either Matt or Gary James tonight. They may want to speak on that. In general, I think there are quite a few issues, and they can be addressed fairly easily, but I do think that we would want to we'd recommend a partial Form H at this point, and they would come back for the final.
Okay. Do we even need to go into Beta's review, or is everybody comfortable with just the release of the partial Form H, and when they can come back for the final thereafter? Okay, so make a motion just to partial Form H, and then they come back with a final after correcting all of Beta's comments and DPW's comments, and we'll go from there.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next one would be a Form H for 206 Grove Street.
Yes, they're looking for a final Form H, and again, I think we would recommend the partial, but I think we'd like to hear from Beta on this one first.
Yep. Matt, could you please give us a rundown?
Yes. Sure, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Matt Crowley from Beta Group. We visited the site the last time on June 2nd of this year and provided a report for the board's consideration. I would like to first note that I believe the design engineer is on the call as well, as there were a number of changes that were made to the site based upon tenant needs, which included adding an additional drive-in ramp around the backside of the building, taking out the proposed security fencing for some of the truck entrances. They didn't widen the driveway along the 210 building access drive or install the curbing there. And they also lost a number of parking spaces due to the added drive-in ramp. Since these are tenant need based, I'll defer to the engineer of record on those. However, there just were a couple other notes on there. They did install an additional hydrant along one side of the building. This was in direct coordination with the fire chief, so I don't see that as an issue. The same goes with some of the post indicator valves were not relocated as called for on the plans. However, they did coordinate this with the fire chief as was required. They did add some heavy-duty car stops to one of the trailer parking areas. This was in response to some damage that was done to the fencing. And we requested that they update the as-built plan to show the force main sewer. And they have done that since our report was issued. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have, or listen to the engineer of record for some of the field changes.
Let's go to is the applicant's engineer online?
Yes, Garrett Horsfall with Kelly Engineering Group. So as Matt described, there were some tenant requested changes. So I know the board has changed somewhat since this project was first approved back in the end of the summer of 2020. But that site plan of record was issued with 107 parking spaces. There was special permit relief granted as it's 150 spaces required for zoning at 1 per 1,000. We then further came back in the fall of last year, 2021, with a tenant on board. We all know it's UPS now. They requested 199 parking spaces to be striped in the loading dock area. They since, during construction, requested that 15 of those spaces be removed. So now there's 184 spaces on the plan, striped physically on the ground serving this building. There's 150 required by zoning. There's no pavement expansion required to stripe these out. They're all in that loading dock area. So there's 150 spaces required by zoning. We have provided 184 spaces. This is per what the tenant has requested. And we don't see any need for any additional spaces that were previously approved. This is strictly to accommodate their needs in lieu of adding additional drive-in ramp at the rear of the facility. And in regards to the pavement widening, this was along the other building, 210. This was directly associated with a request from 210. And they, further in the field, did not need that pavement widening once they saw the final pavement layout associated with 206 building. So the tenant at 210 no longer requested a wider drive-in lane. They stated their trucking facility had no truck maneuvering issues anymore. Once they saw the final pavement or layout at 206 building. And I can bring up a plan on screen to further describe these changes if that helps as well.
Brian, could you let him share the screen, please?
Yeah, I will ask Maxine to.
Go ahead, he's all set.
Thanks, Maxine.
Great. So I'll just kind of run through some of the chronology here, if I can. So this was the first approved plan of record. It had full loading in the back over here. We did add some pavement trailer parking. That was all approved by the board. And then we since came back, it's not the layout sheet. So this was all physically additional striping that was added. This is the pavement widening that was discussed through here. Once the tenant saw this pavement expansion through this area, they were fine with not having this widening section done. So this was the proposed striping layout that was proposed, and then the as-built plan here. They simply added a drive-in ramp here, taking out about 15 spaces that was in this striped section here. So that was really the striping changes. I do note that we did have 2 handicap bays on this record. That's the same that was approved in the original plan set back in the 2020 summer. At that point, this was a multi-tenant setup building. We then came along with a tenant, UPS, that stated a single tenant, and as the tenant fit out was coordinated, they then told us that they needed 2 accessible entries, so it made sense to put the handicap spaces back where they were previously designed. All of the grading was designed that way to allow for handicap at these 2 locations. So we took 3 spaces and moved them down here because there's a customer entry and I think this is a customer entry and then there's an employee entry for people picking up parcels that missed the call. So there's 2 separate entries. So we needed 2 accessible parking areas. Once again, that was the approved location back in the summer of 2020 for these two spaces. So those are the physical changes, and then this is the additional hydrant that was requested for the fire department, for the fire department connection. So none of the field changes involved expansion of impervious surface here. We stayed within the limits of surface parking and then the gates. These were requested by the tenant to not have the gates, and then it actually enhances fire department access. There was a gate proposed this section and this section. The tenant no longer needed them, and it actually improves fire access because they no longer need to have a Knox box key to open these gates for emergency access. So the fire department was okay with that as well. And I'm glad to answer any other questions the board may have or Beta may have.
Okay, thank you. you have a question? I got a couple, but we'll go to Beth first. No, go ahead. I'll wait, so.
I guess, generally speaking, the planning board's process for an applicant or a developer wanting to change something is to go through the planning department to find out with the building commissioner and things to that extent, if you need to come back before the board to change a site plan, in this case, a special permit. So in reading this, it appears as a lengthy list of changes that were made as a result of a request by the tenant, which I understand operations change once you get going and you look at a site. But I guess, I don't know how the board feels about the fact that it kind of just got done and didn't come back to get any opinion on whether it needed to come back to the planning board. And I understand that some of these probably could be field changes, but it would have been just a great heads up to let people know that things were getting changed, I think, before just going ahead to do it.
Brian, your thoughts?
Well, now that we're after the fact, looking back, I guess, I do agree that some of these probably should have come forward to discuss with planning staff, and that we could have presented here if it was, if we thought it needed to be, but it didn't happen. But having said that, now you're dealing with a newly constructed site, and you're dealing with that. So it's your decision on what to do on this point.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comment?
I'm okay.
Okay, Jen, Rick?
Yeah, it looks like the changes they made were proper, appropriate. Just, I agree with that, should have been done a little bit differently.
They came back for modification at one point, but some of these other changes were just done through fire department, building department, et cetera. I just had a couple of quick questions with the exterior ramp. I guess, you're gonna look for railings along the side of the ramp? I don't know if Gus, the building commissioner, looked at that. You have an exit door, plus you have the ramp. There's something to take a peek at, whether you need railings down the side of it. And I guess this next one would be either to Mike or Matt. Is a gas trap required now that overhead door's in there? And a trap for that if you're driving in now?
Typically, it would be, and I believe the contractor had coordinated with the plumbing inspector.
So it was
confirm
installed?
It was my understanding that they were in the process of getting that installed. Yes, I didn't view anything on the interior of the building itself, but I believe they did install an interior gas trap.
Okay. So as long as we can have that confirmed, and if it's installed prior to the final Form H, that would be good. And I guess the railings, I just don't want anybody stepping out of a vehicle and stepping off. It's probably 4.5 foot drop right there to the concrete pad, so. So I make a motion to release a partial Form H, and then once you get everything resolved, just come back for the final. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The next item would be a 81R for 733 Summer Street. If somebody could, Brian, if you want to give us a...
Yeah, I can start. Amanda's here, she'll be talking to you in a moment. It's an 81P, which is an A&R. It is for 2 lots, map 315, lots 36 and 37. Along Summer Street, they would like to create out of those two lots, 3 buildable lots by changing the lot lines. And I was looking, I actually had talked to Amanda about something I was thinking was a problem, but actually she's cleared things up. I do believe that they have done a good job to create the 3 lots that will conform to zoning, including the frontage, lot size, the width, and setbacks. And I don't see any reason not to approve that, approval not required.
Okay. I just have one quick question. I thought we already gave approval for 3 front lots along this run, not in addition to the 6 or 7 out back for some reason. Did we not initially?
Yes.
So this is just that they're changing the lot lines. This
Okay.
parcel is a land court piece, so it's registered versus unregistered land.
Okay,
So they're just changing the lot lines.
okay,
Making lot 3 conform.
okay. All right. I'm okay with that. I thought it looked awful familiar, that's why I'm asking. Okay. There a motion to accept the A and R for 733 Summer Street? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We'll go to our next public hearing, which would be 175 East Central Street, Franklin Ford. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Edward Cannon on behalf of Franklin Ford. I'm
Mr.
joined.
Chairman, just make a motion to waive the reading.
Oh, so moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. I'm joined tonight by Bob Breen, the general manager of Franklin Ford here, and by Jack Madden, the owner. Rick Goudreau, the engineer, is traveling this week, so he can't be with us, but we did want to take a time tonight to open the public hearing to sort of give the board an overview. We don't expect to close tonight, so we unfortunately won't be able to get into too much technicality, but we would like to just introduce the project and give an overview. And through you, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay to either Mr. Taberner or if Ms. Kinnard could bring up the plans on the screen. Is that possible?
Yeah. Maxine, if you make me a co-host, they can bring up what they need to see, okay?
The applicant does have to get conservation approval. There's wetlands in back. They have begun that process. They've opened with conservation. And we do have an initial round of comments from Beta. We can try to touch on some of those tonight. Rick hasn't had a chance to reply to that yet, so we would like the opportunity, obviously, to come back and you know, address all of those items that have been brought up. But a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we have to bring that up again, so they give an overview of what's going on here. Okay.
I'm not sure if Maxine heard me a minute ago.
Yeah, sorry, Brian, you should be okay.
All right, thank you.
If you could, Mr. Taberna, the site plan for it would be great to
Absolutely.
sort of give an overview.
All right. Just share my whole screen.
Thank you. Terrific. If you would- So, I think you're all familiar with Franklin Ford. This also, which is at 175 East Central Street. This also includes 9 Chestnut Street, the acquisition of 9 Chestnut, which you can see sort of outlined in the overview. So the property is at the intersection of Chestnut, King, and East Central Street. And the idea is that 9 Chestnut will be turned into some additional parking and also allow for the expansion of the service area with 6 bays in front and 4 bays. These will be additional bays in the rear. And those will sort of run parallel with Chestnut Street. If you could move on to the next one, Brian, please. It's the next page. We'll sort of, maybe the next page. Okay, that's great. I'm sorry, could you go back one? Here we go, terrific. So this sort of gives an overview of the site, a little over 5 acres. In total, will end up being 195 parking spaces. And you can see the proposed addition. The main building is right off of East Central Street to the west of Chestnut and King Street. And you can sort of see how it loops around now, what would be the one remaining residential building, sort of quasi-residential, right on the corner. And then the proposed addition runs easterly from the existing building, sort of again parallel with Chestnut Street, exactly, adding bays in the front and back. So no change in the use. It's the same use that's going on now, just adding additional bays to what's there now to be able to service their customers. And then there is some parking in the rear that's gravel that's going to be loamed and seeded. And again, we'll be adding so that now there'll be a total of 195 parking spaces. And some of those will be along Chestnut Street. There is an existing entranceway now on Chestnut Street, which is much closer to the intersection. The proposal now is to move that curb cut further away from the intersection at the off of Chestnut Street. Just allows for safer access in and out, move it away from the intersection as far as possible. So that's that aspect. So that's kind of a general overview of the site. Mr. DeBerno, would you mind going to we could always come back to this if the board has questions, but the elevations to sort of give a sense of, that's it, yeah, over on the left, yeah. Okay, so there's a view sort of from East Central Street as to the existing, and then the proposed addition is over on the right-hand side as you look at the plan. And then if you could go to the next screen, please. It gives a good idea of the scope. Any of those pick, yeah, exactly.
Here.
Yeah, either of those would be great. Okay, so this shows the existing building, which again sort of faces East Central, and then in the pink area is the proposed addition, and you can see the addition of the bays in the front facing Chestnut Street, and additional bays around the back. Drainage is being completely redone, so there's some adding some impervious, but the existing drainage there is very old, and it all is being brought up to current standards, which would be a great improvement for that site, particularly since, again, there are wetlands in back. So that's kind of a 30,000-foot look at why we're here tonight. And again, we do have some comments from Beta that are being worked on. Happy to sort of answer any questions to the extent we can that the board may have at this stage.
Okay. I guess we'll go to the board first. If anybody has any comments or questions, we'll go ahead, Jen.
Through the chair. So I understand that you're adding service bays to something that you already have on the site. What is the anticipated increase in customer service or traffic flow through the site in terms of visits or trips throughout the normal day?
We don't think it's going to increase by a lot, but we need the space now to handle what we have. So when you bring a car in for service, a lot of times you have to leave it in the bay. We need additional bays for them to wait for the parts to come in and work on something else while they're there. So basically, we're trying to take care of what issues we have now with the shortage of room.
Okay. I mean, Beta, I know this is your first time in front of us, and Beta noted a lot of different items. I guess my general just commentary, and I'd like to hear the opinion of the members of the board, is this is already a non-conforming use for this area of site, area of town, and this is proposing adding more of a prohibited use to an existing building, versus, say, I don't know, adding more of something that is not prohibited in this area of town. So I'd like to, we've already spent a lot of time sort of talking about this intersection of town from a traffic perspective, but it's also a critical point from the transition to sort of this whole area heading east back up to downtown. I know the existing site is in pretty tough shape, so any improvements that is definitely beneficial, but I just, I guess I'd like to hear from members of the board about your thoughts on this.
Go ahead, Beth.
Just for clarification, this is an allowed use in the zone, correct? But however, I guess my question is regarding the Water Resource District and whether that is actually permitted, because it's non-conforming, existing, obviously, we know that in the Water Resource District, but you're expanding onto it more, making it even more non-conforming, and according to the bylaws, kind of a big loop circle that goes back and forth, and it points you over to ZBA. So I guess just clarification from you as the attorney representing the applicant, why you didn't go to ZBA versus coming here.
Sure, very good question. And actually, we believe that Chapter 48, Section 6 controls. So it's a use that, if it were not existing, would be prohibited in the Water Resource District. But it is a use that's taking place already. So it's a non-conforming use. So first paragraph of 48, Section 6 allows the expansion of a non-conforming use, provided there is a finding by the special permit granting authority, which in this case we believe to be this board, that the expansion of the non-conforming use is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming use. And we believe that to be the case, and we believe that this board has the power to make that finding.
Which I completely respect and don't disagree that 48, that's what it says.
Sure,
But I
yeah.
guess when we get to our Water Resource District and how that's ordered, I guess is my question. How do we, which one applies?
I was gonna defer back to Mark Sorrell and Brian if they could kind of give us guidance on this one, because it is a one hand to the other. You know, so
It's,
just to make sure we're going down the road correctly.
It's a
in
spaghetti
the right
soup.
direction. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
drive yourself into
Exactly.
a pretzel
So,
going through this. but
I was
yeah,
just gonna defer back to them just for advice as well, yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
And in that respect, fine, once we get that clarification, great, but to save some time while we're here.
Sure.
I have a few other questions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Please.
go ahead.
As it goes with the parking, you clearly already have existing parking down there, and how many of those out of the 195 parking spaces are currently on site?
A good portion of it. The additional area, we wouldn't be able to park that many more cars, but we're reconfiguring, so we're losing parking where the service bays are gonna be. So we need additional room in back for car employees, service vehicles, and we use it for storage now. We don't have it in the inventory, so we don't have the need immediately, but when that comes back, that's why we need the additional, because we're actually losing some up front.
Yeah, I guess for clarification, I'd just like to know how many of those are, you know, how many actual additional spaces are you guys needing? So you have current ones for patrons. How many
Yep.
are you going to be needing to store cars?
Out of the 195, about,
Yeah.
it's probably, the number is 50.
Okay, so you have, your existing stripe spaces are being reconfigured, understood. What is your actual increase in parking is a number I'd like to know, I guess.
Probably about 30 cars
Okay.
overall, because we're losing, again, the front, so we need those cars, that's probably 20, so I'd say probably an additional 30.
Just when you look at the plan, it looks like you have massive amounts of new parking on here. Is it's not really clear what's existing and what's new, so maybe
Right,
just a
because
better
the existing isn't
understanding.
really marked.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so it's hard, that's how I'm trying to just think about it, but that would be my best estimate would be probably 50 additional out of the 195, and we're losing 20.
Okay. Maybe clarify that on the plan then, so it's clear.
Okay.
And then, let's see, so do you feel that ultimately 30 spaces or so are the new ones, and 195 is absolutely needed?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Quick question.
Sure.
Quick question to Mike. In the locating of the entranceways on Chestnut Street, is Chestnut getting repaved in that intersection redo? Or, that area?
So the DPW has a paving project on schedule to start up in about a week or so. We're gonna be doing King Street in the section of 140 right in front of here, but we're just doing within the intersection. We're not gonna continue up Chestnut Street.
Okay.
So
I was
we're
just
in fact
curious,
the
okay.
entrance.
That's it.
One quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you anticipate having additional employees as part of this project?
Maybe, but they're hard to get right now, so, we could use a couple additional technicians, but again, they're very difficult to get, and we hope so.
So nothing significant?
Not a lot. We're not gonna hire 6 people, 10 people for the bays. It would be a few additional, maybe 2 or 3.
Just incremental here and there. Thank you.
I just had a couple quick before I go to Matt at Bader and Mike. Couple quick things about the light spillage. I think that can get addressed with the neighbors and the parking, gas traps in the bays. How about, one I had is truck access with delivery of your vehicles. I noticed that I'm not mistaken, you're still parking on Chestnut Street unloading cars. Are you gonna provide
No,
an unload of area for the new vehicles and whatnot there?
So we stopped that quite a while ago. They actually back in to our lot,
Okay,
unload, and then leave.
all right, so you'll
And
have
it'll be
enough.
easier if we move the entrance.
Okay. Yeah, you're moving it to the far right side.
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll have sufficient
Yes, yep.
unloading zones, okay. Screening, I think that was gonna be the easement. Design review, you guys gone through design review yet?
Yeah,
or-
we had some technical difficulties at the last meeting, so we are scheduled to be before them tomorrow night.
Okay, all right. And then, I know there was quite a list, and everybody had a lot of stuff for us to review, but if I can just go for a quick run-through from Beta, and then Mike, you can get everybody's feelings on which road we gotta take here.
Mr. Chair, can I make
Sure.
one more comment, if you don't mind?
Yep.
The lighting that you commented on, I noticed that in the center of your area, the parking area there, it seems to be really, really bright. Is that absolutely necessary?
No,
Okay.
what's causing that is there are lights there from N-Star that have been there. They're on the telephone poles. Those are the bright lights. The new lighting that we're proposing, those heads don't shine like that. They're focused down directly underneath the lights. The ones that belong to the electric company, they're like beams, they go across, and that's the issue with the lighting. I've already contacted them about removing them, so that won't be an issue.
Yeah, you do have some pretty close abutters there, residential, so it would be really nice if you could really concentrate on limiting any
Yeah,
spillage.
they have 4 total. They have 2 out front and 2 out back, and that's what throws the rays of light. The lighting, we just want to, so people can see when they're walking.
Whatever you can do to provide shields to
Yes,
the
yep,
abutters.
that's
Yeah.
all in the plan.
Yeah, Rick did mention before he left to make sure that this board knew that there would be no spillage onto the abutters. There may be some slight spillage onto the right-of-way, but none onto the abutters.
I even think Beta picked that up in their comments as well, too, so it's good. Okay. Matt, if we can just go to you, if you review.
Well,
this.
actually, Greg, it's not Matt, it's me.
Oh, all right. If you want to give us a quick rundown on your thoughts.
You've actually covered quite a few of the issues that were raised in our letter. Number one was the issue associated with the expansion of the non-conforming use within the limits of the Water Resource District. That was a big question for us too, in terms of the expansion. But obviously, we're going to leave that to the board and leave it to town council if it does go to town council, relative to the expansion of the non-conforming use. Secondly, the lighting. The lighting is extremely intense. There is quite a bit of spillage. I actually spoke to Rick about this, and he was going to get back to the lighting contractor and take a look at it. Even to the point that the spillage was to the west, relative to the residential abutter on Chestnut Street. There is quite a bit of vegetation, and if you look at it, the proposed edge of pavement is actually inside the existing edge. So they're not proposing any removal of any vegetation on that side. But as we noted, it is pretty much a deciduous edge in terms of the trees. So during the winter, it might not provide the, the lighting buffer that would normally be required in order to prevent any spillage onto the abutting lot. And I actually spoke to Rick, he was going to address that with the lighting contractor. The stormwater, because it is in the Water Resource Protection District, we did have quite a few comments. Specifically, the outfall actually goes to the west towards the existing easement that is in the back right corner. I believe that's associated with the, is that a senior housing project or senior housing development on that backside?
Apartments.
So anyways, yeah,
Condos.
the question mark was, we actually raised the question is, do they actually have any easement rights to be able to discharge directly to that? And our recommendation was that they turn it away from that and go back towards the wetlands. So they are gonna change that. In addition, we asked Rick to look at it. There is an opportunity to pick up, the runoff coming off of the backside of the house, of the building. Some of that impervious pavement there to be able to direct it towards the stormwater treatment centers that are there. So that was part of our recommendation also. Other than that, I mean, those are the real big issues. There are some other minor issues associated with it, but those are the real big issues, and I believe I think the board members pretty much have touched on them also. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we'll go to Mike
Yes, thank you,
from
Mr.
DPW.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had just a couple of comments on it. The two main ones, as Gary had just mentioned, how to do the outfall, the infiltration system where it's directed to the adjacent lot. We talked about that. So they're going to look at redesigning that so it doesn't impede on the adjacent lot. And then the other item I wanted to note is that we do have an easement running through the site with a 16-inch water main that the town owns, and they are proposing crossing that with a 12-inch concrete drainage pipe. And we just want to verify, want them to work closely with DPW when they're ready to do that work, and maybe even do a test pit to locate that pipe and make sure there's not going to be any conflicts and we have plenty of separation. Those are the two main items that we commented on.
Okay, good. I guess anybody in the audience, if you have a comment, just approach the mic and give your name and address, please.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Heather Bastian, TASCI, 43 Chestnut Street. We just had a concern about noise as well. They tend to honk in order to open the bays, so we hear that not in the middle of the night, but at all times. And then we're also concerned about the lighting. It goes right into our bedroom at night. So of course, since you're moving closer to the residential area, anything that can help with that, that would be great. And then I also had a question in the back right part. I know that there's some wetlands back there. I didn't know if you guys were planning on like grading or if there was going to be anything done in that part of the, like, I didn't see any parking spots, but I didn't know if there was anything happening back there. Like, are you tearing down any trees?
No.
Or, no? Okay.
I believe you're going to leave it as gravel as it was, right?
Actually, some of that
Portion
gravel,
of it?
some of that gravel there is going to be loamed and seeded, actually.
Yeah, and they are working on the light spillage, but as they said, it's from the power company's lights.
Okay.
So if anything, it's gonna be definitely downsized in terms of the amount of lighting.
Yeah, that would be great.
And I guess the beeping of the horns is getting in and out of the doors, if you guys could
I apologize. for
figure
that.
out a
That's-
system with that one.
That's not getting in and out. What that's,
Yeah.
that's the mechanic being lazy and trying to find the car.
Yeah,
So,
they also
they get the
set
keys out
alarms to
back.
find the cars,
They get the keys out back, and the next
my
thing you know,
God.
and then it starts going off, and they can't figure it out, they're trying to shut it off.
Yeah.
But
And
I'm
I
sorry
know
about
there's
that.
gonna be more parking towards us, so.
I'll address
so,
that
yeah.
immediately.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank
that
you.
was it. You're welcome, thank you. Anybody else have any comment? Just approach the mic, please. Name and address.
Sure, Dr. Anthony Benina, 181 East Central Street. My concern was the lights, and you guys have addressed it tonight. One thing I'm gonna say is, before construction begins, can they set those lights proper so that when they take down the vegetation or the house, it doesn't hit me? Because I went through a long problem with the lights that were there prior, and it took a big effort for me to get them resolved. Then they put in the new lights, and even those had problems with them. There's not supposed to be any spillage onto my property, but there certainly is. And I've asked them to put a little shield up to block them, because the new lights are directly in my eyesight, in my bedroom. If you look at my deck, I had to put up boards to help me with that, and I don't think I should have to be mitigating this problem when I didn't create it. So if this new building's gonna, if this old building's coming down, I would ask that they get these lights resolved before I have any more sleepless nights with it.
Okay.
The other thing I have concern about is, some nights of the week, there's some machinery that's running late hours of the night, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a compressor or if it's some other machinery, but it's not every night. But some nights, you'll hear that thing running, and I don't know what that is, but somebody should find out what's going on there.
Okay.
Do you remember what time of the day, what time of the night?
Late, very late, very late.
I can't think of anything that would.
Yeah, I don't know what they're running. I don't know if they're filling up compressor tanks or something.
No, there's nobody in there after 8.
It's not every night, but several nights a month.
I'll look into it. I didn't know that.
We'll run something like that.
Just,
So-
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just
Sure.
for the gentleman, it's old school lighting that's there now. It's actually telephone poles with the old box lights that aren't pointed down, they're pointed out across, and there's 4 of those that are just, so those are gonna come down. I think you have cut sheets for the dark sky lighting that will be also lowered, because those sit at the top of those poles. So the dark sky lighting will come down to about 15 feet and then point directly down. So we certainly understand the
But you know,
concern.
even though lights they put up, there is a sliver of light, and that's directly in my eyes. I have to put room darkening shades on. In the winter time, when the leaves are down, I can't darken my house enough. If I have to use the bathroom, I don't even put a light on, because I can't darken the house. There's just no way to make it any darker. So,
Certainly understandable.
So it sounds like they're working on the lights with the power
Yeah,
company
it
as
sounds
well.
like they are.
That sounds like it'll take care of both of you with
Yeah,
that one,
I'm sure.
actually.
appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Beth, do you have a comment?
Just one more
Sure.
minor thing. Could you ask Mr. Gaudreau to put the abutting houses on the plan?
Sure. Yeah.
I have just one more comment too. And this may just be personal opinion, but I also think it's important to the town. I think it would go a long way to make not only this addition, but the site work as environmentally friendly and sustainable as possible. I mean, this being in a water resource district, proposing expanding impervious area, adding parking, extending a building, the non-conforming use as it is, you know, what can you do to maybe go above and beyond traditional or, you know, not sustainable construction, but like what can you do to help offset or mitigate some of the challenges that the site presents? It'd be nice to see, you know, a real effort made in that regard. So.
Understood. I would say that the investment in the drainage infrastructure is significant, and then also, you know, there's the, back near the wetlands, there's gravel area that's been used as parking, that's not really parking, that's gonna come away. For the second one, not a huge investment financially, but certainly the drainage infrastructure and to protect those wetlands will be substantial.
Which is great, thank you.
And I just had one quick question. I didn't, maybe it was in Beta's report. What do we add for coverage for impervious with this total? I didn't, whether I read it really quick and missed it, but unless Gary remembers, or Mike, we close to the limit, or? It's just going back towards Jen's comment. If we're close, is there other means and methods?
Yeah, I'll, I don't know
76
that off
was
the top.
80 down there? Yeah.
Oh, it's close, Greg.
Yeah,
It's
so
close. It's 76, the proposed is 76, the existing is 66%.
Yeah.
So structure and pavement, you know, they're bouncing right, they're kind of right up at the ceiling. They're almost at their limit, which is 80%.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I
Okay.
think that kind of goes along with my comment, is all that you're proposing necessary? Or is there an alternative to put in something green somewhere to lessen that? Just take a look.
Just a thought.
Hello. Could I ask a few questions?
Sure. Just name
My
and
name is
address.
Kevin Keefe. My name is Kevin Keefe. I own 33 Chestnut Street. It's a direct abutter. And I'd like to start with page 5 of the plan. You mentioned the trees that will be put in. There'll be 3 inches. And I'm wondering, is that 3 inches diameter at 5 feet or circumference? How tall will those trees be? It doesn't say.
So a 3-inch caliper should get you around, what, Mike, 10, 11 feet tall, at least?
Depending on the tree, I would
Depending
imagine,
on the-
but, yeah,
yep.
I think I'd say 3-inch caliper would probably get close to that.
At least.
Okay. Could we go to page 3? The new building, or the new wing, is gonna have, it looks like one door. It looks like a regular fire escape type door. Are there any overhead doors planned for the east side, pointing at 33 Chestnut?
Nothing, yeah.
No.
No? Okay. Continue on, page 3. So the new bays that will be in the new wing, will they have overhead doors that open?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't know where, you talked about unloading the cars, and I assume that would be addressed on page 3. Where will they be unloaded in the new work area?
In the current parking lot, where they do now.
In the-
Yeah,
Is that on, okay.
They back in
Sorry,
off
go
of
ahead.
Chestnut Street. That's gonna change a little bit because the entrance to Chestnut is gonna be moved to the furthest end. So, but they're gonna continue to back in there and unload.
So you'll be able to pass and repass with the trailer in there?
Yes.
When you're unloading?
Yep.
Okay.
So you'll be unloading right at the 33 Chestnut line?
Are you on the other side of the tree line?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I'm on the east side,
Yeah,
on the
it's-
east side of the plant.
It's really the same as they do now. They're gonna come in a little differently, but the open spot is gonna remain the same that it currently is.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So the entrance is gonna be slightly different, but they're gonna angle in between the existing parking, and that's where they unload currently. So nothing will change there other than the way they enter in and exit.
So if I understand you correctly, they'll come in on the east side of the new work. They'll drive down parallel to 33 Chestnut Street, and they'll take a left as they head towards the new wing. And will they unload at the bays of the new wing? Or will they?
It's the same as we currently do, which is in the parking lot itself, in between where we have vehicles parked. There's at least a double width lane where the trucks back in, put the ramp down, and drive the vehicles off.
Yeah, I understand that part. That entranceway currently is roughly 30 feet away from my property, and now it'll directly abut my property. And that's a big difference for me.
Okay, that, the town requested that based on it being a safer access to the street.
But you could drive all the way back, head straight north to the end and take a left and unload it there at the northernmost part of the new work area. Is that true?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay. Can you mark that on the update of these schematics?
Sure.
Just say that the cars will be unloaded on the north side of the new work, or work area. Okay.
Brian, is it possible to put like page 3 up on the screen so you can take a peek at it? Maybe you can point out to the abutter where Rick's not here, he doesn't have the easel, a lot of times it's a lot easier, that's all.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Yep.
We can look at it, but I don't think it is complete, because there's no sense agreeing to something or saying we're gonna do something. if it's-
So they currently, the entrance is on this side. It would move down to this side, but we unload the cars the same. It's in the, this isn't currently there, so, I don't know about that, they changed.
Yeah. I think we'll need Rick's expertise on
Yeah,
that. to
I was
sort of
just gonna say,
study
if
that.
we can,
Because we did talk about it,
if he can designate the area on the drawing where it's gonna potentially happen, that'll be a lot easier for
All right.
everybody to understand, if you can do a little sketch of where the truck's gonna load and unload.
Sure thing.
Because you're gonna make sure you're gonna have access on either side of it as well.
Right.
In due process, anyway, so. And then the neighbor can see it. Oh, go ahead.
Say, Mr. Chairman, is it safe to assume the board would prefer them to show a drop-off area that is farthest away from any abutters as possible? So in your new area that you're showing here, pick a spot that isn't, I mean, understanding that the drive aisle is closer to the abutter. What can you do there to provide?
The only issue that, we would certainly do that, the only issue is moving the entrance. That's gonna be a challenge.
Is there, sorry, I should know the answer to this, but is there screening provided between his house and that drive access? Yeah. Is it
Yeah.
a fence?
Why did we move why did they?
Well, there's some trees there, that's what he was speaking of, but I think additional is gonna be required. Like Mr. Cannon was saying, what's there now during the winter, leaves are gonna fall, so.
Maybe supplement.
Additional screening on that right side would be beneficial, but we'll get to that point, yeah. Fencing of some sort.
Imagine it's also a challenge for the truck driver to back in there, and
Yeah.
it's limited with.
Correct.
Get in there, we have a pretty good driver to get in there as it is.
Sure.
Yeah, it's some alternatives, I just don't know the ramifications of those. I think having Rick's expertise
Sure.
of looking at those, but certainly to the extent that we could move that away from Mr. Keefe, if that's possible, we'll certainly try to do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have more questions on page 4, and I know they've been partially covered already, but I'd like to just go through them anyways. I have them prepared. So on page 4, there are 4 telephone poles that are marked to be removed. I don't see any that are marked as being added, but it sounds like during this conversation, there's going to be additional light poles, though not as tall. Is that true?
That is correct.
And those are 15 feet? Is that what you said?
I'm not sure of the height. I know we had sent in, did Rick send the lighting? Pretty sure. I'm not sure of the height. I could find that out.
Okay. Could the updated plan have those marked where they're going to
Yes.
go?
Yep. He's
Okay.
working with the lighting contractor now, designing them.
Okay.
And those are on the drawings as well, if you can get access to the drawings. Has a photometric plan as well as showing where all the lights are. I believe they're probably 14 to 15 foot tall.
That would be my
That's a
guess, but I don't know for
typical light for that type of facility.
Oh, I see. I have the wrong plan. Is that true?
They seem to be 20 feet tall.
It looks like the same one that you're presenting, so it's got to be this. I don't see any in here. I've looked through this, page 3, 4, and 5. I just don't see them. I also don't see, that in the legend, they have 2 different icons for building mounted light. on page 3, looks like a shoebox. And on page 4, it looks like a left-hand arrow. But I don't see those marked on the building anywhere. So of concern for me is on that eastern side of the new wing, having a spotlight shining directly outward. That would be problematic for me, and that's why I was looking for those building-mounted lights.
Sure,
Could those be added to the schematic?
I can make sure of it, yes.
Okay. And I think like everyone else, I'm looking for zero light pollution from Franklin Ford on my property. It's like daytime there when the leaves drop. And in the summer, it's not all that dark either. I would like that backyard to be dark at night. Like everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Okay. On page 4, for Mr. Benita, there's a 6-foot stockade fence proposed. And that's to protect him, I assume, from the parking spaces that are pointing at his property. And I was wondering why there's not one planned for 33, where the driveway is going to go in. The 6-foot driveway would cut down on driving cars at night that are heading towards the east, and it would also cut down on the sound of cars coming in and out, especially in the early morning and late evening, right? I don't know if you know this, but Chestnut Street is blocked from the light all the way up past Shaw's every day between 2 and 6, maybe it's 7. In the morning, it's the same thing. When I look at these two, where you're moving the driveway to, there's no benefit there. If you're planning that, oh yeah, we're going to get past the traffic, you're not. It goes past my house, down the street, and it's terrible. That whole intersection has to be fixed, but that's not your problem. I'm just letting you know that moving that entrance isn't going to alleviate traffic.
I don't think it was intended to it. It was just to help.
We're on page 4.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
go
was
ahead.
supposed to help them with the parking, with the additional parking. That's what moving that was for.
That's all that's for.
And,
I see.
and for
Okay.
safety purposes as well. But I think the
Okay.
screening we spoke of, I think there'll be some additional screening or fencing of some sort along that side. The lights, sounds like the telephone pole lights from the N-Grid of Mass Electric is more of an issue to everybody than anything at this point. Those lights will come down, and the smaller lights will come into the parking lot, so it'll just be for, lighting for at night for safety purposes for the people within the lot, and fire department, and police department, and everybody else.
And we currently don't have control of their lights as far as
Correct.
timers go. So sometimes I'm told they're on very late, where I shut off less than an hour after we leave, which is 8 o'clock.
Yep. So it sounds like that's gonna get corrected, though.
Yes.
So that sounds like the biggest problem in that area. Okay? Was that it, sir?
Lastly, no, I'm sorry for the delay. One more series of questions. Is this on page 4? It has to do with the infiltration pond and the outflow. You can see the outflow looks like it's spilling into, is that the riprap that's described later? And what I want to know is to put in that infiltration pond outflow like that. Does the 18-inch clay pipe that runs the length of my property underneath all the vegetation have to be removed, replaced with concrete reinforced piping?
We'll get an answer to that.
We'll get an answer from the engineer.
Okay, all right, so, okay, that would be like a next planning board type question?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm concerned about losing the trees on my property for this project to go through. I get about 4 months of leaves that make the property much more enjoyable. I do understand that you're working on the lighting problem, and I appreciate that. I think this proposal is going to be a win-win-win for everyone. I just need to be sure that 33 Chestnut is not negatively impacted. I'm good with it being improved, of course, but I just don't want it to get any worse. So that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm gonna add just
One more?
one.
Okay.
It would be nice, from the screening perspective, to also think about the, street front presence, particularly on Chestnut Street. You know, that side of the property is not where you're advertising for the entrance to your lot. And right now, you know, you walk by the sidewalk and you're just looking at a sea of cars. And, you know, in between sort of a bunch of different residences. And yes, there's a commercial property across the street, but it would also be nice, I think, to maybe consider some visual screening from the actual street, you know, along the sidewalk, especially since that frontage of parking lot is being proposed to be expanded now even further to the west. So just personal experience running down there and walking down there would be a nice improvement. I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. So, Brian, you have a question, comment? No? So it sounds like you get a lot of feedback. You get feedback back to Beta, back to DPW, and hopefully Brian and Mark Sorrell can square away the zoning question, and we can go from there. We'll continue it on.
Sounds good.
Brian, and you went to Conservation Commission?
Yes, they've opened with conservation. I'm not sure.
In design
when the
reviews
next-
tomorrow?
Design reviews tomorrow night, exactly.
Yeah, conservation review, the beta review has just started, so it's
Yeah.
gonna be a little while.
That, so I'm thinking a couple, what do you think the next viable one would be, Brian, for continuing this?
Well, I know
You're gonna
Amy's
need-
notes recommended July 25th, but,
Okay. That give you enough time, or would you need a little more time than that?
I was thinking that would, because Rick's traveling, so I'll give Rick time to get back.
Okay.
I can get him these comments and he can get to work on those.
Okay.
And we have work to do with conservation and
Correct.
design reviews, so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you have enough time. Okay, so I make a motion to continue till July 25th. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
And then we have, next public hearing would be 585 King Street. And I believe they're looking to be continued, Brian?
yes, they're asking for continuance. They're recommending July 11th.
So we make a motion to continue to July 11th for 585 King Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Question on that,
Whoop.
when is there, I mean, that's all fine, but when is the, when do abutters for that project need to be re-notified? I feel like it's been a while.
Yep.
Hmm?
You don't get re-notified.
You don't,
Never? There's no,
no, you just gotta follow
expiration to-
continuations is what you do.
okay.
Okay. And then the next public hearing would have been for Taj Estates at 230 East Central Street, and I believe they're looking to be continued as well.
Correct, July
Um,
11th also.
July 11th, so I make a motion to continue till July 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody have any general comment? I just want to wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July.
Thank you.
Go down and have a sausage or hot dog at the Rotary booth at the Common. We'll be
There you
there
go.
all week.
Okay? All right. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Good night now.
Nice.
Thank you.
In the firearm, you're saying what is, and again, I'm not, discrediting you. I'm just saying your question was, there's no point